You think you know baseball, America's pastime, hot dogs, summer nights, apple pie. But what if I told you the sport you grew up loving was built on lies? Gambling syndicates pulling strings from the shadows, mob bosses literally owning teams, a racist conspiracy that erased an entire generation of players, and a death row inmate who became the most feared hitter in the country. Baseball didn't just have a dark side. The dark side is baseball. And once you see what they buried, you'll never look at this sport the same way again. We're going to go deep today, back to where it all started. And I'm warning you now, some of this is going to make you angry. Some of it is going to shock you. And at least one story in here is going to sound completely made up. It isn't. Every single thing in this video is documented history. History that baseball's biggest names would rather you forgot. Let's get into it. Part 1. The lie they told America before we talk about the corruption. We need to talk about the lie, because baseball's origin story is completely made up. You've probably heard it. Abner Doubleday, 1839, Cooperstown, New York. A war hero who invented baseball in a farmer's field. Clean, patriotic, American. There's just one problem. None of it happened. In 1905, a man named Albert Spaulding, the same guy behind the sporting goods company, set up a special commission to investigate baseball's origins. And when the results came back, they said Doubleday was the inventor. But here's the thing historians now know for certain. The fix was already in. The commission had no real evidence, no diaries, no eyewitness accounts, nothing. They simply chose a name that felt American enough. A famous general, a Civil War hero, the perfect symbol. The truth. Baseball evolved from older British bat and ball games brought over by immigrants. But in 1905, that answer wasn't good enough. America didn't want a British origin story for its national sport, so they invented one. And that lie became the foundation of Cooperstown, the Hall of Fame, the entire mythology of baseball. Everything you were taught about where this sport came from was manufactured. That's where baseball begins, not on a field in 1839, but in a boardroom, with men who had already decided what the truth would be. The fake origin story? That's just the beginning, because while they were lying about who created the sport, someone else was figuring out how to own it. Part 2. When the mob ran baseball. The year is 1869. Baseball is exploding in popularity across America, and the most powerful political machine in the country sees an opportunity. Tammany Hall, New York City's infamous corruption empire, run by boss William Tweed, a man who stole hundreds of millions from the city and answered to absolutely no one. Tweed looked at baseball and saw one thing: control. So he did what he always did. He bought it. He personally pumped money into local teams, funded road trips, paid for uniforms. When the city gave $1,500 to send a team to New Orleans, Tweed quietly added $7,500 of his own money. Why? Because baseball wasn't just a game to him. It was a voting machine. Control the teams, control the crowds, control the crowds, control the elections. But Tweed wasn't even the most brazen one. That honor goes to a man named John Morrissey, bare-knuckle boxer, gambling kingpin, and one of the most feared men in New York. Morrissey owned a team called the Troy Haymakers, and one day he bet $50,000, roughly $1.3 million in today's money, on his own team to win. But as the game played out, his team started losing. So what did Morrissey do? He walked down from the stands, onto the field, and ordered his own players to stop playing. Mid-game, just quit. The game was forfeited. The bet was voided, and $50,000 stayed in his pocket. This was organized baseball in its earliest days, not a sport, a scheme. Part 3. The greatest scandal in sports history. But all of that was just a warm-up, because in 1919, baseball pulled off the biggest betrayal in American sports history. 8 players on the Chicago White Sox agreed to intentionally lose the World Series. Let that sink in. Not 1 player. Not 2. 8 of them. In the most watched sporting event in the country. The price? $100,000. Split between them. Paid by a gambling syndicate connected directly to organized crime. Now here's what most people don't know. The fix almost didn't happen. The gamblers behind it were nervous. They couldn't all agree on how much to pay. The players kept getting stalled. 2 days before Game 1, one of the players hadn't received a single dollar yet. But the game started anyway, because everyone involved had too much to lose. And so in front of millions of Americans, the most powerful baseball team in the world deliberately played to lose. The White Sox lost the series, the gamblers cashed out, and the players, they were charged with conspiracy, dragged into a courtroom, and banned from baseball for life. 8 men, including Shoeless Joe Jackson, widely considered one of the greatest hitters who ever lived, never played another professional game. His career erased because of one decision. The Black Sox scandal became the moment baseball almost died. Public trust collapsed. Attendance dropped. People started asking the same question. Was any of it real? Baseball's response? They hired the first ever commissioner of baseball, a federal judge named Kennesaw Mountain Landis, a man with absolute power to clean up the sport. And he did. But Landis also carried a secret of his own, a secret that would haunt baseball for another 28 years. Because while Landis was busy punishing gamblers, he was quietly running his own scheme, one that didn't involve money. It involved something much more dangerous. Part 4. The color line. Here's something baseball doesn't put in the highlight reels. For decades, the greatest players on earth were not allowed in the major leagues, not because they weren't good enough, because of the color of their skin. There was no written rule, no official policy, nothing in any rule book, just a quiet agreement between owners, a gentleman's agreement. And in baseball, a gentleman's agreement was law. By 1887, the International League, one of the top levels of professional baseball, had voted 6-4 to ban all new contracts with black players. 6-4. 4 people voted against it. 6 people ended careers. And the man who helped make this happen was one of baseball's biggest stars, Cap Anson, Chicago's celebrated first baseman, a fan favorite, a future Hall of Famer, and a man who openly, loudly, publicly refused to play against teams with black players. When Anson spoke, owners listened, and just like that, the color line became unbreakable. Now, meet the men this erased. Josh Gibson, catcher, called the Black Babe Ruth, although some historians argue Babe Ruth should have been called the White Josh Gibson. He hit over 800 home runs in his career, never played a single inning in the major leagues. Satchel Paige, arguably the greatest pitcher who ever lived, struck out legends, filled stadiums, forced into the Negro Leagues, while lesser white pitchers got million-dollar contracts. These men didn't just play in the shadows, they dominated in the shadows. And then came 1947, Jackie Robinson, Brooklyn Dodgers. The color line finally broken. But here's the part the feel-good movies don't tell you. Commissioner Landis, the same man hired to save baseball's integrity, had spent 24 years ensuring black players stayed out. He died in 1944. 3 years later, Robinson walked onto the field. Coincidence? You decide. Part 5. Baseball's legal slavery. Now you might think, At least the players themselves were getting rich, right? Wrong. For nearly 100 years, professional baseball players were legally owned, not metaphorically. Legally. It was called the Reserve Clause, and it was added quietly to every player's contract starting in 1879. Here's what it said, in plain language. When your contract ends, you still belong to us. You cannot sign with another team. You cannot negotiate your salary. You cannot leave. Your only choice? Play for us. For whatever we pay you, or don't play at all. Teams could trade you, sell you, release you, all without your consent. All without a new contract. You were, for all practical purposes, property. This system lasted until 1975. 96 years. Think about that. Players who should have been millionaires earned poverty wages because they had nowhere else to go. The owners called it fair. They said it kept competition balanced. What it really did was make team owners some of the wealthiest men in America, off the backs of the athletes they controlled. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this video that one story would sound completely made up. We've reached that story. Part 6, The Death Row All-Stars, Wyoming, 1911. Inside the Wyoming State Penitentiary, inmates are playing baseball. Not just any inmates. Murderers, thieves, convicted killers, and not just playing baseball. Winning. The penitentiary formed an official team, the Wyoming State Penitentiary All-Stars, and challenged outside teams to come play them. Local towns, college squads, traveling clubs, and the All-Stars beat them. Over and over. But the most shocking part? Their best player was a man on death row, a convicted killer, waiting for execution, stepping up to the plate and hitting home runs. The Washington Post ran a headline that read, "Slayer scores home runs." A man condemned to die, celebrated in the national press for his batting average. No one could explain it. A prison yard full of society's worst, playing America's game at a level that embarrassed free men. The warden reportedly used the games as a behavior management tool. Play well, stay alive. Cause trouble, lose your spot on the roster. Baseball had become a lifeline, even inside a prison, even on death row. It's the strangest, most haunting chapter in this sport's history, and almost no one knows it happened. The truth about America's game. So here's where we are. Baseball was invented from a lie, built on gambling, controlled by political gangsters, betrayed from the inside by its own players, segregated for nearly a century, and run on a system of legal ownership that would look familiar to any history student. And yet, it survived. It didn't just survive. It became the most beloved sport in American history. Maybe because Americans have always been good at one thing, believing the story they were told, not the one that actually happened. But now you know the real story, the dark origins of America's pastime. And if you think baseball's dark origins are wild, wait until we go deeper into the stories that other sports buried even harder. The NFL, the NBA, boxing. Sports built on secrets that go all the way to the top. If you're new here, this channel is the only place on YouTube telling the complete story of American sports. Not the highlight reel, the truth. Subscribe, because the next video makes this one look like a fairy tale. Thank you.